Mumonkan, case number 12. Zuigan calls his master. As some of you may watch this series for the first time, let me repeat that the kind of koans we are presenting here are really only there to address your own true self and to provide you with your own spiritual insight into consciousness. So if it may appear that these stories deal with some bizarre characters from the 9th century in China, which seem to have no interest to you, I'd like you to be patient, and the clarifications that I will then provide after the story will make it all clear that it is not at all about those characters, but that it is all about you. So let's first read the koans, and as usually it has 3 parts: the main case, Mumon's comment, and Mumon's verse. Main case. Zuigan called to himself every day, "Master," and answered, "Yes, sir." Then he would say, "Be wide awake," and answered, "Yes, sir." Then he would say, "Henceforth never be deceived by others." And again he responded himself, "No, I won't." Mumon's comment. Old Zuigan buys and sells himself. He takes out a lot of god masks and devil masks and puts them on and plays with them. What for, eh? One calling and the other answering. One wide awake, the other saying he will never be deceived. If you stick to any of them, you will be a failure. If, however, you do like Zuigan, then all these masks are no other than the fox's disguises. Mumon's verse. Clinging to the deluded way of the mind, students of the way do not realize truth, the seed of birth and death, the ego, through endless eons. The fool takes the ego for the true original self. This whole story deals with the fact that we cling to hundreds of role-playing games throughout the day. This can be indeed called the deluded way of the mind, or the deluded way of this thinking mind. Look at this image with a picture of a puppet play. You can see one puppet asking the other, yes, I can see all puppets around us, but where is the puppeteer? And the other puppet responds, I'm not sure. Isn't this how most of us would respond? I can see all puppets around me, including this one. But where is the puppeteer? And most of us would respond, I have no clue. We are not aware of tiny threads of rope going in the sky and making us play a role of a puppet. Where is the puppeteer? This is more or less what this koan is all about. And let us elaborate a little bit here on what kind of puppets we are talking about. First example, imagine yourself at 7 in the morning. You're still half asleep and you're standing before your bedroom closet and you're just wondering, what clothes am I going to wear today? This green shirt or this blue shirt? And you believe at that moment that you are the master of this role that you're playing, that you are like a controller. But look at it more clearly. Who decides whether it will be blue or whether it will be green? Is this choice not coming somehow out of nowhere? A bit like from an invisible puppeteer who just provides you with blue? Next example, it's now 7:15 in the morning. You're a little more awake and you're preparing your breakfast in the kitchen. So now you believe you're the master playing breakfast, playing the role of a cook. But doesn't this breakfast play also just come out of nowhere? You're hardly aware of doing these things. It just happens by itself usually. And it all comes a little bit again out of an invisible puppeteer. And now it's 8:30 in the morning and you're in traffic and someone behind you is honking, boop, boop, because you're driving slowly. And you turn around and say, what the hell does he want? That reaction you have, is that you? Where does this role playing that you have come from? It also comes out of nowhere. It comes coming from this invisible puppeteer again. Next example, it's 10:30 in the morning and your colleague you meet in the office tells you, oh, you look so smart today, wearing a nice suit or a nice dress. And you look so self-assured. And so you're so flattered, you feel a wave of joy coming in you. And it engulfs you and you respond with a big smile and say, oh, thank you very much. But this role play that you have and this wave of joy that engulfs you, does it also not come out of nowhere? Coming out of an invisible puppeteer who makes this happen? And as a last example, it's 6 in the evening and you're now exercising in the gym and you feel your body is panting and you're tired and sweaty and you see all these reactions to all the efforts you're doing. And you believe that you are training this body, right? But who is this controller? Also a made-up figure. Also these actions that you're undertaking at the gym, they are just coming out of nowhere. And it's also a bit like an invisible puppeteer is making it happen. So with these examples you see that all these roles, and I only give a few examples, they're coming all day long in the thousands, and they're coming and going a bit same like Zuigan, Zuigan calling himself and playing his puppet games as well. What you are, it's not one of the puppets that came in your imagined dream. It is more that which remains after you let all the puppets vanish, including this controller, which himself or herself is still very much a puppet. So whatever the puppeteer is, we are already it. Many of us have a few glimpses of the puppeteer. Maybe when you do meditation, you have this moment of oneness in which you suddenly feel unity, consciousness is there, and you suddenly feel the presence of that puppeteer. Or you might be doing a nature walk and surrounding nature is so beautiful, you suddenly dissolve in it. It's also a moment of oneness in which suddenly the puppeteer makes himself known. Or some people may have joy when they attend a religious service, maybe during their prayer, or when after prayers the church bell rings and suddenly they feel hallelujah, they feel joyful, and they feel the presence of God, they call it then, which is again the manifestation of this puppeteer. Or you have a great day at the beach, you're taking a nice sun bath, and you feel so overjoyed, and you hear children playing all around you, and everything is just going smoothly, and you suddenly find yourself in the same kind of joyful bliss, which is puppeteer in action. Other examples, some people have it in action, maybe while you're dancing in a dancing, and suddenly you're dancing and suddenly your body disappears, the surrounding disappear, and you're just feeling joy. That's again a moment, a glimpse of being puppeteer, of being consciousness. Or just when you're making a walk with a friend, or just when you have a beautiful love relationship with your partner, all these moments can also reveal what we mean by being puppeteer. And so in many ways we are already that. These glimpses prove it. But the problem is we maintain the mistaken belief that we are 100,000 of puppets. So again, as a summary, the first step would be to have some glimpses of the puppeteer. This is what we just told with these kind of examples. And a second step, and that is a more labor-intensive step, is then to get established as the puppeteer. But let's now first return to our main case of the koan. I'll read it again. Main case. Zuigan called to himself every day, "Master," and answered, "Yes, sir." Then he would say, "Be wide awake," and answered, "Yes, sir." "Henceforward, never be deceived by others," and he responded, "No, I won't." So each thought comes up in our mind, triggering a response like this. But these responses are just thought constructs. Master, corresponding to puppet number 1, which we create, and then the yes sir would become puppet number 2. Be wide awake would be puppet number 1 again, and yes sir would be puppet number 2. And henceforth would never be deceived would be puppet 1, and the response, "No, I won't," would be puppet 2. But these two puppets play somehow in Zuigan's thinking mind. And if we then ask who the puppeteer is, you might think it's his mind, it's his brain, it's his thinking mind. That's the puppeteer. But let me give an example that would contradict that. Because what happened in a real life situation rather than is in his own mind. For example, your friend makes an insulting remark to you, which is action, and then you jump into a puppet role of becoming defensive, and that would be your reaction. So here the two puppets are not in one thinking mind. Here the two puppets are different. And here the common ground or the puppeteer would be consciousness or ever-present awareness, or you can call it the ocean containing all waves, or you can call it God, or you can call it the puppeteer. But it is not the thinking mind of anyone here. And in fact, and this is the key point, if you really look very carefully, Even in Zuigan's example, where it all happens in one mind, it is still in fact happening in consciousness. There is no such thing as it happens in his brain or something. Our real true experience is that even those thoughts appear and disappear in consciousness. So, Zuigan's "don't be deceived by others," that may mean other people, but it could also mean don't be deceived by your own self-made puppets. It may mean hang on to the puppeteer, don't be pulled away by the puppets and be deceived by them. It may mean hang on to consciousness, don't get pulled away by 100,000 thoughts that come up and that go. That doesn't mean, by the way, that during meditation we would need to kill the puppets, to kill the thoughts. It only means, in fact, not to be deceived by them, not to be pulled away by them. It only suggests to you, stay deeply anchored in that what you really are. And by practicing that is how we learn to become established as the puppeteer. Let us continue with our text. We still have Mumon's comment. Old Zuigan buys and sells himself. He takes out a lot of god masks and devil masks and puts them on and plays with them. What for, huh? One calling the other and the other answering. One wide awake, the other saying he will never be deceived. If you stick to any of them, you will be a failure. If, however, you do like Zuigan, then all these masks are no other than the fox's disguises. I believe this has become clear now after my clarifications given before. Be the fox here means be the puppeteer and play as much as you like with the puppets, yet do not get sucked into them, into their hypnotic power. Then we still have Mumon's verse, clinging to the deluded way of the mind. That means hypnotized by the puppets. Students of the way do not realize truth. They lose sight, in other words, of the puppeteer. The seed of birth and death, the ego, through endless eons. Our ego consists of thousands of roles, of thousands of puppets, one after the other. Foolish people take the ego for the true original self. We take our constantly evolving ego self as the puppeteer, yet it is itself just as a puppet amongst all the other. Indeed, the puppeteer is not one of the puppets. Indeed, we assign one puppet with the role of a master puppet and called it ego, but that is still not the puppeteer. After this video, take a few moments of silence and try to stay with the puppeteer. Feel the space, feel the peace and love in you that corresponds to this puppeteer. Thank you very much.